Okay, and the last part of our pre-calc circles section is going to be writing equations in standard form when they're in general form. So this involves quite a few of our steps. We're basically going to be completing the square, though. You pause the video as you need to write down the terms that or the steps that you need to do, or you can just kind of follow along, and I'm sure you guys will pick up from there. So first thing we're going to do is divide all your terms by the number in front of the x squared and the y squared. We want the coefficients in front of those guys to be 1. Move the constant to the right side of the equal sign, and then complete the square. Sometimes you might need to do it on both variables, sometimes only one variable. And then whatever you complete the square, make sure that you're adding that number to both sides of the equation. That's a really easy error to make. And then we're going to factor, and after we factor, we should be in standard form. All right, problem number 1. X squared plus y squared plus 6y minus 4y plus 4 equals 0. So the first thing we need to do is to make sure the coefficients in front of the x squareds are 1. They already are, so I'm good. I can go ahead and move on to the next step. You want to group your x's together and your y's together, and move your constant to the other side. So I'm going to group my x's together, group my y's together, and move my constant to the other side. And now I'm going to complete the square on the x's and on the y's. I'm going to do them separately, though, so you can kind of follow along as I do it. So complete the square. Here we go. Okay, for the x's, you're going to find b, which is a -6. Take half of it. Remember to draw some attention to that. That'll come into play a little bit. And then we're going to square that answer. That's the number I have to add inside. The second one, for the y's, we find the b for the y values. That's a -4. We're going to take half of it, get -2, draw some attention to that number, square it, and get 4. And that's what I add to the y's and to the other side as well. So here's the 9 that we got from the x's, and then again I added it over here. And then here's the 4 for the y's, and where I added it again over here. Now, the trinomials are both perfect square trinomials, and they will factor into quantity squared. So remember, they're always going to factor to whatever half of b was. So go ahead and factor both of these and clean up the right-hand side. When you factor, you should end up with x plus 3 quantity squared plus y minus 2 quantity squared equals 9. And from here, we could find the center of our circle is at -3, 2, and our radius would be 3. On our last example, we have 4x squared plus 4y squared minus 16x. Sorry about that. 4x squared plus 4y squared minus 16x plus 8y plus 4 equals 0. So on this one, we need to make sure that the number in front of the x squared and the number in front of the y squared are both 1s. Since it's the same number here, I can literally just divide every single thing by 4. So we're going to divide all of our terms by our leading coefficient. Since it's the same, I can just use 4 all the way through. If you ever come across a problem where those two numbers would be different, you would just find the least common multiple and then divide all of those by that. So I'm going to start by dividing everything by 4. So I believe we should be getting x squared plus y squared minus 4x plus 2y plus 1 equals 0. And now that it is in simplified form, I do it exactly like I did the last one. I'm going to group up all of my x's, group up all my y's, and move my constant over to the other side. Go ahead and group up your x's and your y's, move your constant over the other side. It should look like this. Now we're going to complete the square on the x's and on the y's. So we find our b value for the x's, it's -4. Take half of that. We get -2. Draw some attention to that. And square that answer, we get 4. Okay, you guys go ahead and try and complete the square on the y's. Same exact process. Pause the video if you need to. Find your b value. Take half of it. Draw some attention to it. Square that number. You should get 1. And then make sure when we get ready to write it out that we're adding 4 to both sides and 1 to both sides. And now what we've done is created perfect square trinomials for the x's and the y's. The x's, this trinomial factors to whatever half of b was. For the y's, half of b was that number. Clean up the the right hand side. So we should get x minus 2 quantity squared plus y plus 1 quantity squared equals 4. This is standard form. Our center is at 2, -1, and our radius is 2.